This is the story of how Dr. Baird dunks a basketball. This is the house that I lived in when I was in high school. And one day when I was in high school, my father decided that he wanted to put in a basketball goal. And you can kind of see there is a driveway over here, and towards the back of the house, where the gable comes down, he mounted a basketball goal. It was against the brick wall, not quite against the brick wall, because actually it was mounted on the gable, so it was about a foot out from the brick wall. But in and around the goal was this brick wall. And the driveway widened out close to the wall, and also went all the way out to where the garage was in the back. And it was about a 15-foot radius that you had where you could take shots like from the free throw line. You could take practice from every different angle like a free throw line. And my father, my brother, and I had a lot of fun. We played a lot of games there, like a horse. You guys know horse, where you make the shot, and then the next person has to make it. They don't, they get an H. And if they don't, so we played horse. We played around the world, where we kind of go around and try and make the shots. Again, the first person to go around the world with the shots wins. And so we had a lot of fun with that. And I also remember my father was very competitive. I thought my mother and father were very competitive. And when we started getting older and getting much better at making shots, my father started practicing. And he would practice like in the middle of the night. We're going to sleep. My father's out there practicing on the basketball goal, so he could not beat them in horse or around the world. So I remember that. And I used to have a lot of fun shooting the basketball just on my own. I also found it very comforting. Like if I had a test and I was studying for it and I got kind of overwhelmed by too much stuff, I would just take the basketball and I would just go out there and shoot hoops, whenever, and come back in and go back to work. And so it was a big part of my life growing up. And at some point, I realized that if I ran at this brick wall, and I ran at it and I put my right foot out in front of me and I planted it like just a couple of feet off the ground, I could push up off the wall and I could touch the rim. And I can't touch the rim. And my father, this was a 10-foot height regulation goal, right? My father made sure about that. And I could touch the rim. I said, that's great. And I started getting better and better at that. And I realized that I actually could dunk the basketball. Can you get that basketball, please, if you do it to me? So I could take this basketball and I could soar to well over the top of the hoop and slam the basketball down through the hoop. And you might think that's hard, but I actually got pretty good at this, right? And I had my standard way of doing it. I would run to the right side of the hoop, of the backboard, plant my foot like a couple feet off the ground, and then soar up high, turn my body to the left, and slam the basketball through the hoop. And I got really good at this one. So, I should mention something else about myself, too. I was about 5'3". I was a sophomore in high school. I was definitely the shortest person in my class, and I weighed 89 pounds. I don't know how many of you are in that category, but I know it very well because we had wrestling in PE, and I was in the 105 and less category, and I was the only one who weighed 89 pounds. Everybody was over 100 pounds, right? But I was very scrappy. I had very strong legs. I was very fast, and I actually got second out of like 6 people. I got second place, and I could beat some kids that were about 100 pounds. The guy with like 105 was just too much. So, anyway, I was going to show this picture, right? Here's like me. I was a little kid. So it's pretty impressive, right? 5'3" guy being able to dunk a basketball goal in basketball. All right, I should say there was one thing that was a problem, though, and that was coming down, because when I, 5'3", get up high enough to dunk this basketball, I'm pretty high off the ground. And so coming down, could be a challenge, right? Because I think sometimes I might be 5 foot off the ground when I'm coming down. And but that was no problem for me, because when I was a kid, I loved jumping off things. This is my favorite thing, playing cops and robbers or cowboys and Indians. Like in the Western movies, get me up there on the roof. I get a ladder, get up on the garage roof, and I just fall off, and jump. 10 foot was nothing. I would easily do a 10-foot jump like anything, right? And so I got very good. In fact, the only time I ever got hurt doing this was one time when we were raiding these other kids' treehouse, and we climbed up in these kids' treehouse. And I remember specifically because there was an old television show called Superman, which they don't show anymore. But I used to go around with this towel around my neck, and so I had they climbing up the tree. I had my towel around my neck. So I thought I was Superman, and so and this was about 15 foot off the ground. The kids are coming up, they see us in the treehouse, and it's okay, I'm Superman, and I jump out of the treehouse, and it was a little high, and I twisted my ankle, and I had to limp home, which is not really great for Superman. So anyway, but otherwise, I had no trouble 5 foot falling down like that. That wasn't a big issue. I also say that for some reason, this was a private thing of mine, this dunking. I don't remember anybody actually seeing this, also don't say there's no... I never invited Mom, come see me, or my brother, go see me. It was just something I did by myself. I know I never did it in a game of horse, because I know I would have won that shot. Oh, do this, and then my father or brother never would have done that shot. So I never did it. It was a private thing. But I also remember a very big fantasy that I had while I'm up there and I'm running to dunk the basketball. I would look over to the right, where the street was, and I would see this coach or this basketball scout coming down the street, just happening to see me at the top of my arc and saying, "Oh my God, what a great basketball player you are! We're going to sign you up for wherever, the NBA." And they said, "Yes, you will, right?" And so I never could figure, wouldn't they know that I needed a brick wall to be able to achieve this? I didn't bother. It was just this fantasy I had of dunking the basketball. All right, so. The other thing is that when I graduated from high school, I stopped doing this. I don't know, you mature, you go off to college, and I'd come home for weekends, but I never did it. It was like something that I just did when I was a kid. And I'm not sure why. I think maybe the magic wore off, or I started getting afraid of actually hurting myself coming down from it. And so I hadn't done it for like a couple years, until one day I was at my friend's house. I have a friend called Chuck, who was like one of my best friends in high school. But during college, we went off to play basketball at his house, the kind of thing we used to do. But he had a driveway, a nice 2-car garage, and he had a basketball go right over the center of his garage. Like he mounted on the eave, and this is more common than the way we had our goal. He had it over the center of the garage, and he opened up the 2 cars, the 2 doors for the 2-car garage, and we had our friends out there and playing like a half-court game on the driveway. And we're playing half-court, and I started looking at his goal, and I noticed that in between where the 2 doors are, there is a brick wall, a brick column. It's like a 1-foot brick column separates the 2 doors of the garage. So I'm looking at his goal, and I'm looking at this brick column, like a 1-foot brick column under the goal, and saying, I bet I could dunk the ball. I bet I could do this, all right? I say, no, there's some problems about this, because firstly, it's been a couple years, right? Literally have not even tried to do this in a couple years at my own house that I'm used to doing. And also, this is a 1-foot brick column, and I'm used to having like all this room under here to plant my foot wherever I need to, right? I have to hit the middle of, or I had to hit a 1-foot brick column. And also, his brick column was right under the goal. Not off, like I would jump to the side, because it was a lot easier to jump to the side and back down. So I'm thinking, this may be a little challenging, but you know what? I'm young, right, and I'm vulnerable. So I said, I think I can do this. All right, let's see. All right, I should mention something else now that I see where we're going with this skit. I have to say that I was not very adventurous in my dunks. And you have to remember also something about the kind of way people dunked back in the early 70s when I was in high school. Dunking was not allowed in the NCAA basketball from like 1967 to 1976. They just did not allow. There was a guy named Lou Alcindor, later named Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was like 7 foot, and they just made these rules. They didn't want these guys dunking basketballs. It was not a good shot. Right. And in the NBA, it started allowing. Certainly there were people who were able to do it, but it still was not a very common shot. And the most famous guy back in the early 70s that I remember was a guy named Dr. J. I don't know if anybody remembers Dr. J. Julius Erving. He played for the Philadelphia 76ers. This is way before Michael Jordan. But Dr. J would do this classic shot of, they call a 2-handed tomahawk dunk, where he would slam the ball through the hoop, just like I did, thank you very much. A 2-handed tomahawk dunk. Now, of course, he would soar from the free throw line, and he didn't use a brick wall to do this. So it was a little bit different than mine. But it still was a 2-handed. That was about as adventurous as people were doing with dunking back then. Dr. J did do a 1-handed, but my hand was not big enough to do that even today. So I couldn't do a 1-handed, but I could do a 2-handed like right here. This is what he's about to slam it through, just like I did, soaring to the air from the free throw line. But this wasn't there. I didn't do any like windmills, like do this, or behind under the legs, and I didn't do behind the back. I didn't grab onto the hoop. I didn't do elbow hang, I didn't do all those things that they do now. It was simply my two-handed, I like to call it, I didn't call it tomahawk, my tomahawk dunk. They didn't even use, I think slam dunk wasn't even invented until 1972. This was new stuff. Dunk was all it is, and even dunk was pretty new because it was considered an unfair kind of shot. So I'm planning this, how am I going to do this? Before I take this shot, there's one other thing that I have to do though before I do it, and that is get somebody to bet me that I can't do it. Which was a tradition of mine. We had this tradition. I was one of the main people who pushes getting people to bet you can't do some kind of stupid dare. And so this is a perfect one. I'm going to get them to bet me that I cannot dunk the ball, and then first prove them wrong and get this bet. And I had done this quite a bit of before, another thing. In fact, I should mention, one of the more famous incidents of me getting people to bet me that I wouldn't do something really stupid was on a canoe trip that we made in northern Arkansas. And we lived in Houston, Texas, and we drove up to northern Arkansas, where there are these beautiful rivers, one called the Buffalo River and the White River. We had our own homemade canoes. We made our own redwood strip, fiberglass canoes, and canoed down these rivers. And then at the end of this nice trip, we stayed at this park called Bull Shoals White River State Park. And so a very nice park. And right there in the park itself was this dam called Bull Shoals Dam. And the water would run out from Bull Shoals Dam. In fact, when you went to the park, you could visit the dam and walk through it. It was pretty neat. And I noticed when I was there at this park that this river, the White River, is freaking cold. It comes from the bottom of this lake. At the very bottom of this lake, it's very cold. And the water there is 37 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, literally, it is 37 degrees Fahrenheit. And I know that because I used to have to wash my dishes. We take our dishes down to the river. We'd all get washed downstream. And I put my hands in the water, like, this is cold. All right. But somehow I'm looking at this river, and I'm thinking, I wonder if I can get somebody to bet me that I cannot swim across this river. Now, I should mention something else about this river. The dam does not run continuously. The dam runs sometimes during the day, and other times of the day, it doesn't run. And before it starts turning on, when it runs, it's like a lot of current. But when it's not running, it's very calm, like you can kind of see right now. And they would blow this big horn before it blew. All right, so I'm thinking, I could swim across this. Can I get somebody to bet me? And they're all saying, oh, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. Until finally somebody says, we'll bet you a Coke. I think Joe Martin, who was the leader of, this was a group of people, it was an explorer post, like a high adventure explorer post, like a Boy Scouts, people graduated from Boy Scouts. And he bet me a Coke that I would swim across this river. It was about 50 yards across, 37 degrees Fahrenheit. And I said, yeah, Coke, I'll do it. I was really cheap. My bet's Coke was our standard bet. So the next morning, like 20 of us are all standing around there. We got my swimming trunks on. Joe Martin's there. And they're all watching me, this idiot who's going to swim across this 37-degree water. And so I step toward the water, and I put my big toe, actually. My big toe in the water, and it's like, pain. All right, instant pain. Cold. And then I realize, it's numb. I don't feel it anymore. It's no more pain because it's totally numb. And so I put my foot in. Oh, it's numb. I put my other foot in, numb. And I start walking across the shallow part of the river until it gets to the point where it is so deep that I have to start swimming. And then I immediately start doing what we used to call a side stroke. I don't know if they still do that, but it's a side stroke where you put your arms and your legs kicking out like this. My head is not going in this water. There's nothing where my head is getting in the water. And I also noticed something else when I do this. I am hyperventilating. I am going like an automaton. I am side stroking across this river. And I start thinking about things like, I can get hypothermia from this river. I can have a heart attack from this river. If I have a heart attack in the river, who is going to save me? Who's going to want to come in a 37-degree water to save me? And then after it seemed like only a minute, I'm on to the other side. I'm now walking out of the river, and I am still numb, but I start feeling tingly sensations, little tingly sensations, and my feelings are coming back into my body. And I remember walking, and I wasn't paralyzed. I mean, I could walk across and out of the water, and I stood up on the rock, and everybody on the side is cheering, and saying, come on back. I'm not thinking about coming back, right? I'm enjoying the sun and all the sensations and the tingling feeling as your blood rushes through your skin. So that was good. To get the Coke, oh yeah, I got to swim across. I was to go there and back. So after enjoying that for a couple minutes, I start walking back to the water, dreading it. But I was pleasantly surprised that when I put my foot back in the water this time, it was still pretty numb. I couldn't feel it anymore. And it was easy. Actually, it was a lot easier swimming across the other side. I got the other side, and they all cheered me, yay, 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 yay. And somebody put a towel on my back, and I went off to take a hot shower. And that was it. Like, okay. That's what happens to these bets. They're once you've done it, it's over. And they didn't even make Coke. It wasn't. All right, so back to Chuck's house and the garage and the basketball. And I'm looking at this hoop again, and who's going to bet me? And guess what they bet me? A Coke. All right, that's it. I got the Coke, and that's all I need. And then I take the basketball, and I'm sizing out this thing. And I start dribbling. I would start dribbling, and then I'd start picking them. I'm not going to keep dribbling up to the hoop. I got to get in both hands, my two-handed tomahawk dunk. And just as I'm going close enough to start playing, I realized, I said, dang, if I put my foot in the center of this 1 foot brick column, I might actually come up and hit my head on that hoop, because I'm not used to doing it underneath it. I'm going to have to, and this is like within a fraction of a second, I'm thinking I'm going to have to adjust what I've done. I'm going to have to bounce off and jump backwards and then come out like something like this, which I've never done, but I'm not stopping because I'm going for that brick wall, that brick column, actually. And so I said, again, flash seconds in my mind, I better hit the right part, the right edge of this, as close as I could to the right, so I could kind of get as much over to the right, and maybe I could get a little, and I don't know. I'm not stopping, though. So immediately I go in and I plant my foot, and I don't get it on the brick column. I get it on the right edge of the brick column, like right there in the corner, and my foot goes like this, and my body is hurtling at this brick column. I'm not stopping, and my body flies into, I'm barely able to turn my back, and my whole back just scrapes up against this brick column. And I was in agony, and I'm lying on the ground, and all my friends are laughing. You idiot! What the hell? They know they were thinking I was just going to go like this and be 2 foot short of the thing, and they don't know what I was trying to do, running at this brick column. That's crazy to them. And I thought, they didn't understand the physics of it, the logic of everything that I thought of, how I was going to do this, and how perfectly it worked if I could just have planted my foot exactly where it's supposed to have been, and turned just exactly so. They just all laughed, and I didn't get my can of Coke, and I could have invited them to my house. I hadn't done it for a couple, but I know I could have done it in my house. I could have invited them to my house, but the whole problem was, once they realized what I was trying to do, that I was going to use a brick wall and not really dunk it, it had to be shock and awe, like, oh, they didn't, that was, oh, you thought outside the box, and I would have won the competition just because I had done something outside the box. So anyway, they weren't going to, they wouldn't have accepted that as a true dunk. In fact, it would have been very much like, if I had put a ladder next to the basketball goal and walked up the ladder and dunked, okay, that was really clever. Yeah, you dunked the ball. So I said, anyway. So I never dunked again in my life. I never did another ever since that day. I never did it. But if somebody would happen to bet me something that it's possible I could do a dunk if I had the right kind of atmosphere or whatever, so I don't. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking.
Sorry, Baird.
Yeah.
I'll bet you a Coke that you can't dunk.
Oh, you will?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm ready for it. Okay, all right, thank you very much. What the hell? This is wild cherry Pepsi. I'm sorry, I don't drink wild cherry Pepsi. That's not good enough for a basketball dunk, but maybe I will dunk the ceiling of this room for a wild cherry Pepsi. All right, you ready? Wait, I need my basketball. No, that'll get in my way. I'll have to drop the basketball. All right. Here we go. This is the way it's done. It's done. Stop dribbling all that. No, zip. I'm sorry. Sorry. There we go. Okay. All right. Now we want to get this shot. I can do it again if we need to.